All right, so tonight we got the draft. Obviously, all of us down here, we're looking forward to it. The Heat, are we going to make a big move? Pat Riley, is he going to take a big swing? And the guy, of course, that everybody is keeping an eye on here is Damian Lillard. Well, the guy that everyone's keeping an eye on as well in the Northwest is Damian Lillard. And joining us here, Danny Marang joining us here on ZASLOW Show 2.0, 1080 The Fan in Portland, and also, of course, Jack Ramsey's, which is also a partner on the Blue Wire Podcast Network. Mm-hmm. Danny, thanks a lot for hanging out with us here. And the first thing I want to say is I love the name of the podcast, Jack Ramsey's. You guys obviously in Portland. There's multiple connections that we have to Portland down here. Number one, of course, with Eric Spoelstra being the head coach of the Heat and the Spoelstra family with the ties, of course, the Portland Trailblazers, but also
went to the same middle school, as funny as that is.
Okay. And also, of course, great name, the Jack Ramsey's. You guys, of course, love Dr. Jack Ramsey. And I would say the fan base that loved Dr. Jack Ramsey, the second most of any NBA franchise, is the Miami Heat fan for all the years that he, of course, was, when I was a teenager, when I was a young boy and then into a teenager, Jack Ramsey was the color analyst, and I love Dr. Jack. So really cool connection there that you guys have with us. But tonight we got the NBA draft. We're all keeping an eye on Damian Lillard. So where are we at right now? All right.
Obviously,
there has not been any trade request. It kind of feels like a little bit of a game of chicken is going on, Danny. Like, I almost feel like Lillard is I feel like he's open to the idea of moving, but he doesn't want to be the one to say it. And the Blazers don't want to be the one to trade him. They want him to request it, and they will kindly acquiesce. It kind of feels like that's where we're at right now. Am I wrong?
I wouldn't even go that far. I don't think Lillard's even open to the idea. So what you have to kind of understand is when it comes to Damian Lillard, there's two versions. There's Damian Lillard, and then there's the people around Damian Lillard. Damian Lillard doesn't want to leave Portland. No ifs, ands, buts about it. He wants to spend every second of his career here. He wants to retire here. He wants to live here. He's building a castle out in the suburbs here where he's got his own roller skating rink. He's got his own basketball court. He doesn't have to leave the place. He will, when it's all said and done, if he does what he wants to do, which is play his entirety of his career here, he'll probably end up being the most powerful person in the state of Oregon. Right now it's Phil Knight, then it's probably him, then the governor. Quite literally. That's how much sway he has in this state. And I don't think any part of him wants to leave. And even if the Blazers were to make the pick, I still don't think he's going to want to leave. But for the first time, the people around him might be able to bend his ear into thinking about it. Even then, if I was a betting man, I would put it at a less than 1% chance that it ever happens. That's not even me just being a homer. That's just knowing Damian Lillard and talking to him for years.
I totally get the he doesn't want to leave aspect of it. But we could say that about all these star players who have spent their entire career in one place and then eventually they ask out. Almost all of them don't want to leave. Their preference would be, give me all the good players, come here so I don't have to go anywhere. Like, there are two different things at play there then, right?
For sure. And here's the thing, though. There is something different about Dame in the same sense that there was something different about Dirk Nowitzki. And obviously Dirk got a title a little bit later, but even without that title, I don't think Dirk would have left Dallas. I think that was just that was who he was. It was a part of him. And even though Kobe asked out and they eventually got him Pau Gasol a year later, I still think this is one of those situations where I don't think it's quite as binary as the national narrative has made it sound like. Now, this is probably the closest it's ever been to it actually being a possibility. But even then, I would still walk it back.
It's got to be really annoying for you guys there, right? Because, I mean, I'm coming from a place where I like it because it's the Heat who are directly involved if something happens. But otherwise, like in years prior, because this has been an ongoing conversation on the periphery, essentially, for a few years now. And my general attitude is, I hope he stays. I like it when these guys stay, I'm rooting for something different now because we're in the mix. But you guys, like, it's got to be so aggravating, right?
The insanity of it all is Damian Lillard has never minced his words. The reason it gains traction is other people. It's never Damian Lillard. Even the Showtime interview that he sat down
Right.
for, was it 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
What keeps getting edited out is, of these 4 teams, which would you like to go to? It's not which teams in the NBA would you like to go to. Like in the discussions that I've had with folks around the league, the likelihood of Damian Lillard being traded to the Nets or the Heat for the proposed packages, they laugh at it. There's no. I'm telling you right now, Tyler Harrell and picks. The Blazers aren't even picking up the phone. Pat Riley's number is blocked. Unless they find something somewhere else, it's a non-starter. It's the same thing with Brooklyn. Those picks, everybody keeps talking about those picks in Brooklyn. They're so great. Those guys are in 6th grade. If you're restarting a team, you want to go young, you're not going to see those picks for 5 years. So it doesn't do Joe Cronin and the Trailblazers. Number one, who wants to be the guy that trades Damian Lillard?
Right.
Nobody.
Right.
And who wants to be the guy that trades Damian Lillard for pennies on the dollar, regardless of pressure being put on him by Damian Lillard? And the other part about this is Dame is not built like James Harden. He is not going to go to the strip club, put on 30 pounds, disappear from camp, and force your hand to trade him. Even if things got the absolute worst, it's never going to get to that level. So this whole idea of like there's this leverage thing that I keep hearing from Miami fans. Oh, if Dame asks out, he's going to go to Miami. I
don't believe that at all. I don't believe that at all. That's why I think it's, look, the Heat style, Pat Riley style, I've been saying the reason the Heat fans been frustrated over recent years is they've had opportunities to hit home runs, but instead they hold out to try and hit a grand slam. Yep. And they have not been able to hit a grand slam in a while now. And so I understand the frustration coming from the Heat fan. But, if Lillard does ask out, what do the Blazers front office care? I know they could say they want to send him to the place or places that he would want to go, but how much do they care about actually sending him to where he would want to go, as opposed to, let's make sure we get the best deal possible? And that's why it's such a dangerous game Miami's playing.
And that's the thing, is they would care. Joe Cronin has been in the organization longer than anybody. And for those that don't know, Joe Cronin took over obviously when Neil O'Shea was dismissed 20 months ago. But the flip side of this is Joe came on as an intern. He worked his way up. I mean, true bootstraps pulled up through cap guy, through workout guy, all the way to assistant GM, where he was then promoted. He has been with the organization since 2006. He knows what Brandon Roy meant to this organization. He knows what LaMarcus Aldridge meant to this organization. He knows what Damian Lillard has meant to this organization better than anybody, because he's had a front row seat for it. He was there the night Damian Lillard was drafted. This isn't a new GM who isn't familiar with Dame. They have an intimate relationship. I'll just put it this way without going into the names. I was talking to Dame during as the trade deadline ended, when the Kevin Durant trade broke. And he's like, I got to go talk to Joe. So he literally, we're in the loading dock. It's 11:30 at night. And he's going into Joe Cronin's office to like, okay, what is there something we can do here? Are there things we can go look at? Like, that's the kind of relationship they have.
So they would care. They would care what he wants.
They would. But at the same time, it was reported that CJ McCollum, when he was traded to New Orleans wasn't number one on this list. He was given a list of teams.
But he's not Damian Lillard.
No, but at the same time, again, Joe Cronin can't be the guy that, number one, trades Damian Lillard and gets nothing back for him. So there's going to be, I believe that the Blazers would do their best to help him get to a landing spot that makes sense. But there's a reason why Damian Lillard has said in those same interviews that seem to get edited out over and over and over again, the Showtime interview, he's like, I'm aware of what's out there. I know what it would take to get me to a team. And that's why the grass isn't always greener. The Carmelo Anthony situation where, and he just signed that contract extension. So he's not going to be able to hold over the Blazers that, my contract's expiring. You have to get me out of here or you're going to get, no, there's 5 years left on his deal. So I don't think the Blazers are going to say, we're going to send you to Utah. I mean, Utah actually would make a little bit of sense because they do have a ton of capital and Dame does have familiarity being from Weber State. But I was thinking of a small market that hasn't been very
Detroit.
good lately. Yeah, they're not going to send him to Detroit. They're not going to, well, I mean, the Spurs could be on the come up in a year or two, but they're not going to send him someplace. They're not going to send him to OKC just because they have a ton of capital.
Yeah.
They are not going to operate that. However, they're not going to just give him away either because he is the best player in the franchise's history.
The thing that I find interesting is, correct me if I'm wrong, but Lillard would probably like them to, instead of using the number 3 pick, trade it for a superstar to play next to him. But the place where I have pause is, okay, let's be realistic. Of all the players who could be attainable for the number 3 overall pick, meaning you're not getting Giannis for number 3, you're not getting Jokic for number 3. Of all the players who could seemingly be attainable at number 3, is there a single one of them, Danny, that you could put next to Damian Lillard right now and say, now you're a contender in the West?
And the thing is, I think there is. Now, how available they are. I mean, Bam obviously not being available, but Bam would be one. Mikal Bridges and Nick Claxton together, that would be a pairing that would make him happy. Because here's the thing. Throughout this whole process, and just kind of, and not even leading into this summer, just general team construction stuff, I asked Dame, I want to say probably like November, December, because there's been so much discussion about team building, this post-Neil O'Shea era and how they've moved some things around. The 2014-15 Trailblazers were Damian Lillard, Wes Matthews, Nick Batum, LaMarcus Aldridge, and Robin Lopez. They were a 53-win team, and they were probably a Western Conference Finals team before Wesley Matthews' Achilles ruptured. They were one of the 3 or 4 best teams in the NBA that season before that happened. And they have not had a team that has made functional sense since then.
Yeah.
Dame does not need to have the Heatles. He just wants a team that makes sense, that like legitimately gives him a puncher's chance. He's not asking to be Muhammad Ali in the ring. He's asking to have a puncher's chance. That's all he wants. And then let him do it from there. So that's why I say like a pairing with like Mikal Bridges and Nick Claxton. Why? Because Mikal Bridges and Claxton fit exactly kind of how he wants to play stylistically, and it helps that Mikal is a friend.
But that's the same scenario, right, with Bam, where the Heat want Lillard, but the Blazers want the guy that the Heat want to pair him with, and the same thing with Brooklyn. Like those both seem 100%. Like wet dreams, right?
The other one that isn't where a team's like trying to pry Damian Lillard out on the opposite side is Zion. That's the big swing. And I've heard that.
Don't you think New Orleans would be amenable to that? I feel like New Orleans would be interested.
I think they are. The way they're flagging their interest in Scoot. I mean, they're basically, the cartoon wolf with their tongue hanging out and their eyes flashing right now at Scoot Henderson. And as far as everything looks like it's going to line up, Scoot Henderson is going to be there at 3. It's the same thing I've heard for the last 2 weeks. I've heard behind the scenes that Scoot Henderson is trying to angle his way to New Orleans because he wants to have the keys on day one. Because look at it. If Scoot does come to Portland, if they take him, because talent-wise, they have to.
But it's redundant.
But not only is it redundant, it's overly redundant. Mm-hmm. You have 96 minutes between the 1 and 2. Yeah. Damian Lillard plays 35 minutes tonight. Anthony Simons plays 35 minutes tonight. Shaedon Sharpe plays 20 minutes tonight. That leaves you 6 minutes. 6 minutes for Scoot Henderson. How can you get anything out of him? And as much as everybody was like, well, I guess Portland's leveraged. They're not. They'll be like, fine. Because we know that people want Scoot. We know that people want Ant. We know that people want Shaedon. We know that people want Dame. We know that people like it's not a bad thing to have assets for 3 to 6 months and then test the market again, because that's the way they'll do it, because they won't operate from a position of weakness, because in this market you cannot.
Is there a portion of the Blazer fan that kind of feels like, all right, the writing's on the wall with Damian Lillard. We tried and just we're not getting there. So let's hit the reset. We want to keep the number 3 pick. Let's move Dame, get a lot for him. Is there a portion of the fan base that is ready to do that?
I would say if you pull the 16 to 24 demographic, that's where it's strongest, because they don't know what dark days are. Because all they know is Damian Lillard, because Damian Lillard gets you 41 wins. If Damian Lillard plays 75 games, you're getting 41 wins. Mm-hmm. He's good for 500, which there's probably 10 guys in the league who can do that offensively. Like that, he's that. I mean, if you look at every advanced metric, he was a better offensive player last year than Jokic. That's not me saying that, it's the Portland guy. That's you look at literally at every advanced metric. His offensive season last year was insane. And they still literally win 33 games because they tanked the final 28. And that's the thing is like, had they kept going, they would have won 42 games. And they probably would have gone into play in, and then maybe they make it in, maybe they don't, but nobody here wants that anymore. And so you get these kids that go, yeah, get it out, hard reset. And they don't know the dark days of like, Damian Lillard, not only as a winner, guarantees you this floor, but he's not Ja.
Seems like a great dude. Great dude.
He has been here for 12 years and you have not had a single problem.
Yeah.
As great as LeBron is, and as much as he's stayed out of the issues, still a nightmare to deal with.
Right.
Like Dame and Giannis are probably the only. Jimmy, I love Jimmy. Jimmy is a guy who should have been in Portland 3 different times, but Neil O'Shea refused to make a deal. Jimmy's a nightmare. That's why he hops from teams from every 2 to 3 years. I still love him unabashedly. But as far as superstars go, Damian Lillard and Giannis Antetokounmpo are the 2 lowest maintenance, highest floor as far as like setting standards guys as there are in the league. And that means so much. And as much as I believe in Scoot being a generational talent, having that box ticked still is an unlikely scenario as solid a kid as he is.
So finally here, Danny, is there like an imaginary deadline as to where, okay, they're definitely not trading him? Like, what's going to happen? What can happen where you feel like there is some type of, I don't know if conclusion is the right word, but is there a point where you're like, all right, he's staying. We're moving forward. This is it.
Tomorrow night. I mean, what's going to happen is seemingly most of the NBA is in France right now. Draymond, LeBron James, Jeremy Grant, Damian Lillard. I want to say 4 or 5 other guys are all out there together right now. When the Blazers make that pick and they conclude the draft, they're going to have their.
Will Lillard be out there during the draft? I mean, that's the middle of the night for him, right?
Oh yeah, no, they'll be watching. I know for a fact.
I guess it's only like 1 or 2 a.m. It's not that bad.
But they'll still be up. I know for a fact. What'll happen is Joe will make that phone call. And, as media, we'll be down there at the practice facility, and they'll be going through, once the draft concludes, they get their undrafted guys. The Portland team actually has a G League team for the first time this year since 2010. So they'll be trying probably to fill some guys there and get one more 2-way and bring some camp guys in. And I would imagine then there's a conversation with Dame before that Joe Cronin comes into the room and talks to us then. And one of the first questions I will ask is, have you had a conversation with Damian Lillard? What was said? How did it go? And then we'll kind of go from there. I would imagine that they will set the parameters for that conversation then, and then it will continue into free agency. And if they aren't able to do additional stuff, then they will probably make a decision. And even at that point, I would still imagine if I were a betting man, I would bet a significant amount of money on Damian Lillard not being traded this summer.
Okay. All right. There you go. Danny, excellent job. Tell everybody, of course, how they can check out the Jack Ramseys. Go ahead.
Yeah, you can find us anywhere you get your podcast, Spotify, Apple, iTunes, all of the good stuff, iMusic, Apple Music. I don't even know what it is. I use Spotify, so I just go with that one by default. And then you can find us on YouTube at Jack Ramseys, and you can follow, you can be a part if you want to dive in deeper on the Jack Ramseys Patreon page as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Danny. I appreciate it. Have fun with the draft.
Yeah, thank you, man. You too.